So things are changing dramatically. So we had the statement of recognition of Somaliland on Friday by the state of Israel. That is the first time for more than 35 years now. And for some reason, Somaliland deserves that recognition because of the marginalization and injustice and the abuses that has been committed by Somalia for over 60 years. People talk about the recent history, but I usually refer back to the longer history of Somalia, Somaliland. Yeah, and this has been a peaceful part of the Horn of Africa, stable, democratic, with frequent elections and a growing diaspora, as well as local civil society groups with a dynamic and a booming business as well. But the issue was about the recognition. Last year, Somaliland tried to engage with Ethiopia, a neighboring country, but that deal, for some reason, didn't go well. So now the recognition of Israel came, and that has brought some local reaction from Somalia. Since Friday, we have been monitoring this situation, and we are now witnessing that different elements of reactions, sometimes interconnected, are happening. We have seen the Houthi militia in Yemen issuing statement condemning Somaliland and Israel and threatening to attack Somaliland. That's one. The Houthis are a proxy to Iran. And then we have seen the Al-Shabaab militant group in Somalia also issuing a statement threatening to attack Somaliland and Israel interest, and mixed fragmented groups within Somalia also issuing statements likewise on that. We have seen also some reaction from some Arab countries. We have seen the European Union.
I have a question for you. How do you explain that Somaliland managed to develop these democratic institutions, this democratic culture, despite not having the global support that so many non-democratic countries have towards democratization?
So, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Somaliland was, I was only 6 years old when Somaliland independence came, and I had friends, schoolmates, and neighbors who are originally from Somaliland that time in Somalia capital Mogadishu, and all I could hear was the stories and the atrocities that have been committed by Somali military back in the 1988, 1989, and all of the things. So I got quite fascinating that part of the story, and I got a lot of information in the years following, and I read many things, and then I got to develop a lot of information and friends in Somaliland. That's why I'm keen to talk all the time about Somaliland. What is quite interesting is that the past 3 decades in Somalia, we have been in chaos, in a full conflict within Somalia, involving pirates, involving terrorism, involving ethnic-based conflicts in Somalia. But interestingly, Somaliland survived all of these conflicts. It has been peaceful. It has proved to be a very stable state within that region. And the reason is because they have been much disconnected from the rest of Somalia because of the breakaway in 1991. That's one thing. And then Somaliland developed also democratic institutions, building institutions from state governance into a booming civil society, and that proved to be a successful locally owned initiatives for Somalilanders. And that is something that we all have to appreciate.
But how did it happen? Like, how did it happen that it was locally grown and not with the aid of international institutions?
Sure, yes. So this is how it started. So this project of Somaliland started all over from the local clan elders who came together to establish the Somaliland as a state with the help of politicians. In 1991, Somaliland was started from under the tree, the shade of the tree. That is where the project was established. That is how it started. Now, let me give you another contradictory example. Somalia, the federal government of Somalia, as we call now, was started in Djibouti, just in diaspora, foreign funded, not locally owned. You see, it's vice versa. Now you have Somaliland, 1991, locally owned, no foreign funding, and locally established by the local community, by the local people. That is the difference. That is the difference. That is why Somaliland was a successful project while Somalia became a failure. That is exactly how it is.
And what about culturally? Like, there must be tribal differences. There must be cultural history. Certain Somali leaders in the past played different sides, sometimes the Soviet Union, then suddenly switched to the West. And Somaliland was previously British as opposed to Italian. Is there any like specific worldviews or cultural elements that allowed for Somaliland to be different than other countries in the region?
The difference was obvious from the starting point. Yes, as you rightly said, Somaliland was under the British protectorate in 19 from 1920s, 1960s. Somalia was under the Italian colony. 1960, June 26, Somaliland became independent. But they did not become a separate country. They suggested, they offered to join their brothers and sisters in the south to form a united Somalia. That is July the 1st, 1960. That's how it started. Now, that time, Somaliland already had gained independence, had trained technocrats, professionals. I mean, because of the influence of the British, a lot of Somaliland technocrats were trained in the UK that time. While the south of Somalia, there was no established or trained government technocrats. That imbalance had a long effect on the Somali state building from the 1960s. It was very obvious on that. Culturally, the people in Somaliland are more open, more democratic, and their culture is based on sharing and caring. Indeed, that is what they have been into. Because of, if you see the kind of the peace, the peace process, the peace building of Somaliland started from the ground with the help of the clan elders. While in the rest of Somalia, the clan elders could not help when Somalia fall into full anarchy in 1960. And the difference was because this community in the north, as we call, or Somaliland, the society was more open, more transparent, and democratic. And today, that is very obvious. The South was more corrupt. Community elders, the clan elders were more corrupt, and they could not help their country in 1990 when their country fell into that. And then Somaliland, the influence of religious groups was less minimum that helped shape the kind of the governance they have. In the rest of Somalia, always the influence of clan elders and the religious groups, including these extremist groups, was always there. And that made Somalia difficult to develop a functioning governance in the country. Today, if you go to Hargeisa or Somaliland, women do not wear hijab. It's headscarf, the headscarf. In the rest of Somalia, they cover the face. That's the difference. Now in Somaliland, the media is open. The government has a direct elections where people will go and vote. Foreigners, tourists will come to Hargeisa, and you will find on the streets with no guns, with no security guards. In Somalia, you can't do that. You can't go out to the street. No, that's impossible at the moment. So the kind of the difference is that now they have their own currency, Somaliland shilling. In Somalia, we use the dollars, the US dollars, because the Somali shilling has devalued for quite a long time. Somaliland has its own parliament, its own military, its own police system. Everything is quite different. Yeah.
One thing that I find very inspiring is, and I of course want to connect it to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, is it seems like Somaliland pursued the opposite of what the Palestinians pursued, meaning that they first focused on building civil society, building an affirmative culture that's centered around rule of law and democracy.
Yes.
And then after building that, it was inevitable that they would get that independence. And for many of my Palestinian friends, I imagine they see this as a point of inspiration, where the focus should now be for Palestinians on building democratic institutions, cultivating a egalitarian society and culture, and seeing Western democracies as allies, not as places to conquest and to, let's say, expand jihad or ideology.
Yeah. I got that point. Yes, Somaliland was has spent a lot of time building the local institutions, the civil society, the technocrats, the state architect, the state functioning institutions. That's what they focused much about their time. And remember, without much funding from the West, without political support, because Somalia was always blocking that support to come forward to Somaliland. I recently visited Kenya, Nairobi, and one of the discussions we had with different political and diplomatic groups was that Somalia survived even though the blockade by Somalia. You can't send cash to Somaliland diaspora. Nowadays, it's even becoming more difficult to travel. For example, people traveling from diaspora had to apply 2 visas, one for Somalia, one for Somaliland. And I mean, people going to Somaliland had to apply double visas because that was the requirement of Somalia. And Somalia was imposing strict travel regulations on airlines. And airlines had to follow these rules because still Somalia is the legitimate, recognized state for all over the country. And Somaliland people were struggling to just break this blockade on their travel. Likewise, even though that was the challenge, that was the problem, these people in Somaliland were patient, they were resilient, they were focused, they were building institutions, they were trying to make friends in the West. They allied with the US, they are friendly to UK, they have got a Taiwan embassy in Hargeisa. All of these things. China in Somalia is trying to also destroy Somaliland by funding local armed groups in Somaliland. So Somaliland on all this hostile front, it survived. And last Friday, they got the best award of the year. That's what I wrote on my Twitter. That's the best gift that someone will give in a year, end of year. Yeah.
That leads me to my next question. If you can maybe describe how beyond, of course, the joy of finally being recognized, but more specifically, that the first country to recognize Somaliland is Israel. How does that play both within Somaliland and within Somalia?
Yes, that was uh, surprising, unexpectedly fast moving scenario and incident. Nobody was expecting Israel will be the first country to recognize or establish diplomatic relations with Somaliland. Nobody was even thinking about that. It came off guard. Everyone was like, what's going on? That was the big surprise. We were expecting other countries, but not like the US or the UK or United Arab Emirates or Ethiopia, but not Israel. The reaction was twofold, I will call that. One was more negative. It was more pro Somalia, the kind of the more political statements we usually find, which is like territorial integrity of Somalia and Somalia as a one, all of these things. This kind of rhetoric, it's something that we have seen all the time coming from different groups like African Union, all of these things. Another one was more positive. For the first time, locally in Somaliland, people were celebrating with Israeli flag on the streets. No more hiding. People used to hide from having an Israeli flag or waving Israeli flag on the street. Imagine in a Muslim majority country, people will go to the streets and celebrate with the Israeli flag. Imagine since October 7 attack, nobody in a Muslim world will ever dare to come out with an Israeli flag. But that happened in Somaliland. If you check social media, if you check Twitter, X, Facebook, you will be surprised. Young school children having their full attire made from Israeli flag.
But before the recognition, was there like a natural sympathy? Like, did Somaliland people like Israel before?
Before the recognition, it was mixed, half. We have seen protests supporting Palestinian. We have seen protests by different groups condemning Israel in the past. But everything changed now from Friday, that the ground and the local people are more supportive and welcoming Israel. I've seen a woman calling, and there is a media interview that a journalist was asking someone on the street what she will do if Israeli officials visit Hargeisa, and she said, "I will take home to my home and welcome them and give them the best gift I had locally and culturally." That is the narrative. That is what's going now. So this is really important. Today we had statements coming from local Muslim religious groups in Somaliland. The Salafist group, the Sufi group. The Sufi is more moderate group, and a few other groups. Imagine all united in support of Somaliland and Israel and condemning Mogadishu, Somalia. All of these things that's happening. And I was like, wow, everything has changed in a few days. Everything is changing. And that is because people now are reading a lot and a lot. People are understanding what's going on. People are no longer accepting the fake narrative that has been spread across by the Arabs, by the few select elect individuals, whether they are in the diaspora or in Somalia or somewhere else. People are now understanding. Even in the cover up of the religion, nobody can give their own interpretation. If you say something, I have my own interpretation. I will tell my own version of the story. That is exactly what's happening now.
So there's like it's not just a question of a country getting independence. It's also people on a personal level getting independence to no longer be subject to this tribalistic ideological thinking.
Sure. No subject to tribalistic ideological thinking, no subject to strict or wrong interpretation of politics or cover up of religion in the way of to serve someone's political agenda. That was something that has been used on the streets, on the mosque, on every public space in the past. But now, thanks to the social media, thanks to the young generation who are reading a lot and a lot, people are now awakening and aware of everything. Yesterday afternoon, there was a public demonstration, people gathering in Hargeisa, around 1 million people, 1 million people coming together with loud speakers, with music, with talking about all of these things. People talking about let's be united, let's make sure that our country is stable, let's think about the security. And there was social media posters saying that if you see something, please report to the police. That's what's happening.
Now, Abdal, tell me about Somalians, people from Mogadishu that are either there or in the diaspora. I know there's obviously a lot of anger. You were sharing about anti-Semitism, but also there's people like yourself that see this as hope. So I'd like to hear about both sides.
Sure. It's divided. The reaction from Somalia is also divided. And first of all, I want to report to you that there are a number of Somali parliamentarians who left Mogadishu yesterday because they are not happy with Somalia and they are supporting Israel and Somaliland. Well, a number of Somali parliamentarians. One of them also resigned and publicly announced his resignation because of the in support of Somaliland. Locally, yes, there are quite a number of media, journalists, like-minded civil society groups who are saying this is not about religious, it is about collaboration, it's about political interest. Israel has a political interest, and yes, Somaliland has a political interest. Why not work together for a common interest? Why not? Israel has a lot of benefits to come in terms of supporting Somaliland and people of the Horn of Africa. Myself, I was those people who were loudly coming against the anti-Semitic propaganda and rhetoric by the extremist groups, including those are within Somalia government, the president, the prime minister, several ministries in Somalia, who are all aligned to the extremist groups. And we are winning this thing. We are winning this thing. Yesterday, sadly, I received a death threat message yesterday afternoon. I received one death threat in the afternoon, and I reported that to the police, and I hope that nothing bad will happen. But I can tell you the environment in Somalia is even changing. In the diaspora, yes, there are a lot of quite number of people who are supporting Somalia, who are anti-Israel, who are trying to bring the issue of like nationalistic agenda into the cover of religious agenda. Quite a number of people in different parts of the world, including in the West. But to be honest, there are good people who are coming loudly and publicly and telling the truth, and the truth will come out one day.
Now, what about personally for you? What are your, I mean, this is a momentous change. You've been a very vocal public advocate who's risked your life, who suffered personally and family level wise. What are your plans with this big change?
Now, for the first time, I can see that the future is coming. Somalilanders, my friends, sisters and brothers in Somaliland are now free. They can travel. They can have their own state. They can have a peaceful, democratic country. And I'm congratulating to them. I want to see in my own capacity for my community, for the people where I come from. I come from the south of Somalia, and I want my people to be free. My goal, my ambition is to have a democratic and free country for my people. I want my family to be able to be back in their rural area, and they will be free and they will be democratic one day. It's not uh, something that I'm expecting tomorrow because it is too risky still to do that. But what I am advocating, the reason that I am now publicly speaking and expressing myself is to be able to have other fellow members of my country to join my cause and have a united and democratic country for my community or for my people. I come from a community which is very marginalized, low income, less developed, no education at all. There are more herders and rural people, and I want these people to be able to be free one day like Somaliland.
And do you think that Somaliland will become a place for exiled Somalians like yourself? Like, could you imagine yourself?
Yes, yes, that's right. That's true. I am hoping that Somaliland will give safe haven to people from Somalia who are fleeing from persecution, like myself, and that they will be able to build a future in Somaliland with the support of Somaliland and Somaliland people and Somaliland government. Because remember, it is today it is you, tomorrow it's me. Yesterday it was Somaliland people who were trying to get safe haven in other parts of the world. Today they are free. They should welcome us. They should give us space.
Well, thank you for sharing that. As you know, SHIUR, we we've been involved in bringing together different dissidents and intellectuals to engage in text, in humanist text and ideas. And I'd love to invite you and other people from Somalia and Somaliland to participate and join.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and I
Thank
look,
you very much. I would love to join that. I will be happy.
yeah,
And I would like to connect more and more and spread my voice so that my case for my country will also get a lot of support. We have been monitoring this kind of the online hate speech, the anti-Semitic, all of these things, and we are collaborating with Meta, the company that owns Facebook, and it's good to also highlight that in a broad level so that people will know what's happening, and we have to combat this hate speech and make online safer for everyone.
exactly. Thank you very much. I look forward to have more good news, not just for Somaliland, but also for Somalia, Puntland,
Absolutely.
for the whole region. Um,
Sure.
thank you. I look forward to being in touch.
Thank
Take
you very
care,
much.
Abdal.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.